All right, good morning, everybody. I am ready to read lesson 174. Sounds like we got Tom in here and everything else. So, as long as you weren't so into my music, everything should be just fine. All right, here we go. This lesson, like the last couple of days and even the next couple of days, is a review lesson. And review lessons, in this particular case, we're going to go over 157 and 158. 157 is into his presence would I enter now. 158 is today I learned to give as I receive. God is but love, and therefore so am I. Into his presence would I enter now. God is but love, and so am I. Today I learn to give as I receive. God is but love, and so am I. The general instructions for these 10 days remain pretty consistent in that they say something like, Lesson 174 is a review of lessons 157 and 158. We will begin and end each session with the same theme behind this review lesson, which is, God is but love, and therefore so am I. The central idea from lesson 157 is, into his presence would I enter now. Consider how this lesson clarifies and enhances the theme that God is but love, therefore so am I. Next, review the central theme from lesson 158, which is, today I learn to give as I receive. How does this lesson clarify and enhance the theme that God is but love, and therefore so am I? Remember to end your session by repeating, but love, and therefore so am I. Throughout your day, remember, the words but go beyond the words. Today, throughout your day, remember the words, but go beyond the words. Share the experience of being that love, and you will create a great day for yourself and for the world. I love that Tom says, create a great day. He says that phrase a lot. At least I've heard it a lot. Maybe he says it to me. But that's one of the great phrases that I think we can all come back to. Creating a great day is as easy as our choice to do so. All right, I thought I would read the notes from 158 and give us a little bit of that. It's optional. Everything's optional. Just kind of musing through. So if anybody on the stage has a strong desire to hear something specific, let me know. Otherwise, I think this one might be helpful to us. So again, today's a review of 157 and 158. Lesson 158 is, today I learned to give as I receive. I have some stuff highlighted in the lesson itself. And the key things that I think I can pull out of this lesson are, experience cannot be shared directly in the same way that the vision of Christ can. And in that specific phrase, they're talking about a revelatory experience, something that produces a revelation in something else that gives them the aha moment, generally is not something that you can explain in a way that gives the other person as much depth or revelation as you did. Revelations can't really be passed along. And it's frustrating sometimes, but our best stories are our best stories to ourselves because what they help us become, not necessarily in order to convert others. So we have to kind of take that pill and take our own evolution a little less seriously and allow other people to evolve around us. The next sentence is the revelation that the Father and the Son are one will come in time to every mind. Yet yet is that time determined by each one's mind itself, not taught. The time is set already for your reawakening, is the beginning of the third paragraph, and it kind of continues that thought. We all have times for our own reawakening, and we're all in our own timeline that's just as perfect as everything else we're going through. All right, in paragraph 8, I've got a recognition that the world cannot give anything that faintly can compare in value, nor set up a goal that does not merely disappear when this has been perceived. And this, the vision of Christ, you give today. See no one as a body, greet all as the Son of God he is, acknowledging that your brother is one with you in holiness. And 9's first sentence, thus are your brother's sins forgiven him. For Christ has vision that has power to overlook all belief in sin. Belief in sin is in bold. So Tom took the word sin and added belief in sin to try and help us remember that it's really our beliefs about other people's sins that get in our way. Our beliefs get in the way of other people's stuff because we label it as sin when we really can't judge because we didn't walk in their shoes. All right, my final highlighting from this lesson. Each brother whom you meet today provides another chance to let Christ's vision shine on you and offer you the peace of God. Each other is another opportunity to free a brother. All right, I'm going to pause for a minute and I can read the notes or we can go straight into a meditation. We've read these notes before. It's been a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's helpful. But what I'd love to do is get a temperature from the room. What do you think, Tom?
Go ahead and read the note.
Okay. All right, I'll do it. Here we go. The notes to lesson 158. Today I learned to give as I receive. Today's lesson is I learned to give as I receive. This is an important lesson as it covers the notion of time and Christ's vision. I would also like to use this lesson to explain why we have such a difficult time with the idea that to give is to receive. Christ's vision has one law: never look upon the body and mistake the body for the Son of God as God created him. We are to look past bodily forms and not be deceived by appearances. When you give Christ vision, you look past the body and instead see that all are joined as one mind, perfect, whole, and complete. The gift of Christ's vision is what we have received from God, and that we give to another. God knows us as the Christ, part of the one self, perfect, whole, and complete. This lesson asks that you give that same vision of what you are to another. This lesson also talks of time. In the 4th paragraph of this lesson, it states, time is a trick, a sleight of hand, a vast illusion in which figures come and go as if by magic. Yet there is a plan behind appearances that does not change. The script is written. When experience will come to end your doubting has been set. For we but see the journey from the point at which the journey of separation to reawakening ended. Looking back on the journey, imagining we make the journey of separation to reawakening once again, reviewing mentally what has gone by. We believe time has a future unknown to us in which truth could be different than what we perceive truth to be today. We perceive that time is linear, and moves in one direction, from the past to the present to the future. Instead, time is a journey that's already over, and we're merely looking back from the completed journey and imagining we are making this journey once again. Experience is not the same as vision. We cannot share experience, but we can share vision. Christ's vision is the truth of our oneness, sinless, and guiltless nature that all God's creatures, all God's creations possess. Experiences provide context for content that deals with purpose that can be shared. Content, purpose, and vision all deal with the reason behind the experience. When we utilize the vision of Christ, we are witnessing for the truth that we're a mind and not a body. We are sinless, guiltless, and remain as God created us. Vision is the knowledge of the truth that you are mind, in mind, and purely mind, sinless forever, wholly unafraid, created out of love. With vision, you know that you have not left your source, and you remain as God created you. This gift of vision is the knowledge that we have been given, which cannot be lost. Just missed one word in there. This gift of vision is the knowledge that all have been given that which cannot be lost. Because of this knowledge, all live and remain connected to God, their source. Christ's vision is the recognition, awareness, and sharing of the knowledge of your divine birthright with others. With that said, I'd like to discuss the law of God that states to give is to receive. If we truly understood this law, our belief in sin, guilt, and fear would disappear. In this course, we've often said that to give is to receive. Yet, most of us still believe this is not the case. We have a problem with the idea that to give is to receive because we still perceive that giving requires sacrifice. We believe sacrifice is required because we don't understand the what, to whom, where, and when that is involved during the act of giving. Our eyes deceive us. Time deceives us. A major stumbling block with God's law that to give is to receive is our confusion with what is actually being given. We believe we are giving some kind of form, like an apple or something, not the content of the love of wanting to share something with somebody else. Not the content, purpose, or what the Course might refer to as vision. What we are actually giving another is our vision, our purpose. They're free to accept or reject our vision, but our vision is the real gift underneath. The form, right, an apple, that the actual giving encompasses is immaterial. It could be a gold coin, it could be a piece of fluff. It's of no consequence. The physical part doesn't matter, it's the intention. Yet most perceive the form to be the most important. Most mistake the item or the physical thing to be the only gift that's actually being given. They ignore the whole other side of what the vision from the givers. They ignore the giver's vision that was behind the gift. And Tom gives us a great example here. Let's take the example of giving $10,000 to another. There's been a lot of inflation lately. So let's take the example of giving $100,000 to somebody else. The question really is, what is the giving for? Are you giving 100K, or are you giving hope? Are you giving dependence on money, or are you giving abundance? Are you giving to a needy body who's desperate, or are you giving to Christ and the universe and every other slice of God that's out there? Do you perceive the other to be your equal or someone who is either beneath or above you? They're not, they're your equal. Ultimately, in time, what we are really giving is either being a witness for the false or a witness for the true. That line is the big ta-da in this. We're either giving unconditional love or we're promoting fear. Fix this today and your day will be great. The second problem we encounter with the idea that to give is to receive is our failure to understand to whom we're actually giving the gift. God gives love because God knows that there's only one self, and therefore God's actually giving to that one self. God does not perceive that since there is nothing separate from God, and perception requires both an observer and something to observe, we, however, have a problem with this because we perceive that there is something outside of ourselves and that the separation is real. When we give love, it is conditional love because we perceive the separation to be real. Ideas never leave their source, but that's not what our split minds believe. Our split mind believes that our love leaves our mind and goes out to a separate entity, and that the second entity chooses to receive and then chooses to respond to our love by either accepting or rejecting our love. The recipient's response to our love is perceived by our split mind to be outside feedback that's needed to determine if we should continue our loving actions. To the ego, we only give to get, and therefore we want some return for our investment, for our so-called loving actions. Because we believe we are a separate body and not one shared mind. We believe that our ideas leave their source. We believe that based on the feedback we receive from the recipient of our idea, that their reaction has the ability to impact our ongoing behavior. We perceive their feedback to be a mechanism that determines if we should continue to send our love to the other party. We believe there are outside forces that can affect how we behave. We have substituted our conditional love for real love. Conditional love is fear-based. Conditional love only gives to get. God's love is unconditional. It flows continuously. God doesn't require our feedback to determine whether or not God should continue to love us. God knows that to give is to receive, and therefore the joy of giving the love is completion. We, being the recipients of God's love, are God's treasures. Since ideas never leave their source, we are an indivisible part of the one self. Unlike conditional love, God does not require our acceptance of his love to obtain the joy or satisfaction that's often associated with behaving lovingly in the realm of duality and perception. Yet in the world of perception, we perceive ourselves to be separate from God. We felt we were the recipient of God's love and mistook receiving and giving to be two separate autonomous events. To the split mind, giving and receiving are not considered one inseparable act. God knows that giving and receiving are instantaneous, and they're the same thing because there is only the one self, like me handing something from my right hand to my left hand. Okay, in the world of duality, giving and receiving are perceived to be separate because we perceive the giver and receiver to be separate. We believe there is a cause and effect relationship. There are two separate happenings which create a measurable gap in time between cause and effect. We fail to perceive it as one spontaneous event. The game of separation is birthed from our mind's failure to understand that giving and receiving are one inseparable act. We, being the recipients of God's love, felt we needed to give God our feedback. Sorry. Makes me think of a feedback box, that you have at the office. Like you can slip a little thing in there to God. We failed to realize that just our being available To be given God's love was God's joy and the treasure. Perceiving the giver and receiver to be different, our now split mind felt that how the recipient received the love was important feedback to the giver. Ultimately, we felt we should reciprocate God's love with our own love to God at the same level, right? This desire to reciprocate led to the idea that giver and receiver were separate and that love should be earned and then paid back and returned. God's joy was already complete just by the act of giving. Since there was only the one self being perfect, whole, and complete, there was nothing that God needed. God did not require any response from us to make God happy. That's our personification of God. Come on, people. Since God's love was truly unconditional and complete within itself, there's no way we could earn God's love. God does not need approval or acceptance. Yet within our split mind, we believed that God was so insecure that we should reciprocate God's love with our own love to God. We thought God needed that, required that from us because of our pettiness. We wanted some way to be able to earn God's love, which is impossible within a oneness of all that is. Earned love, which would be conditional love, could only be possible in the mind that imagined the separation to be real. Perceiving itself to be separate from its source, our ego felt that we lacked the ability to earn God's love. Only if duality existed could the ability to earn another's favor or displeasure be possible. Because we failed to understand that to give is to receive, we felt our inability to reciprocate God's love demonstrated lack. The belief in lack, of course, has been defined as sin. God could not understand our desire to earn God's love because the concept itself had numerous erroneous assumptions. We've talked about these before, right? These assumptions get in our way now. Love could not be earned since the separation is impossible, and to give is to receive. This is why God's answer to the question of how we earn love is the atonement, the at-one-ment. The atonement is the acceptance of the at-one-ment principle. Atonement is the acceptance of truth, that you remain as God created you, part of the indivisible one self, perfect, whole, and complete. Earned love is impossible since it contradicts what real love is. This notion that giving and receiving are separate gives rise to the belief in sin, guilt, and fear. Fear is the notion that love can be earned and that there are outside forces that can impact what you are, and that by your actions you can make these outside forces love you. This egoic world was birthed by our belief that our inability to reciprocate God's love was a sin. We felt that we had sinned against God, whom we perceived to be a separate entity, and the giver of the love that we received. This belief that the recipient could or should reciprocate to the giver made the separation appear real. Conditional love was born because we believed the giver and receiver were different and separate. This egoic world is a place where we can pretend that conditional love, which is love's opposite, actually exists. This world is where we believe love can be earned, which is why this world seems to be such a fearful place. Conditional love requires the belief that you're needy. Conditional love perceives the recipient to be not perfect, whole, and complete. The more lacking and needing one is, the better for the giver, right? This belief made the separation appear real, and it created an opposite to God's love that is totally unconditional. Our desire to be able to earn love created conditional love, which is actually a form of fear. Why did we do this to ourselves? Because we fail to understand that to give is to receive, our split mind is incapable of recognizing unconditional love. If and when unconditional love is received, our split mind will misjudge it to be conditional love, just like that girl that loved Tom early on in his life. Our third problem with the idea is that to give is to receive, is our confusion with where and when the giving and receiving is taking place. We believe giving and receiving take place in time, not eternity. Time is the belief that there's a gap between cause and effect. The only reason there can be a gap between cause and effect is because we fail to recognize cause and effect as instantaneous, and we're caught up in time, and that confuses us too, right? Being two sides of one inseparable event, that's cause and effect. Because of this gap, we believe that the cause requires delayed feedback of the effect to determine whether or not it should continue. We see this belief in a gap between cause and effect in unconditional love. One person acts in a supposedly loving way and then waits upon the reaction of the recipient to determine whether or not the giver should continue to behave lovingly to the recipient. The so-called giver of love now believes that how the receiver reacts to their love is their source for their joy, rather than their joy being instantaneous with the act of giving. In eternity, there's no gap between cause and effect. With the giving of love is also the completion of the joy of love. We can better understand our problem in recognizing that to give is to receive when we understand the difference between unconditional love and conditional love. Remember that what we call conditional love is actually the opposite of God's love and should be called fear. Love, as the ego perceives, is a euphemism for fear. In our world, conditional love is a mask for fear, and fear often manifests as and is described as hate. Unconditional love gives to itself, since it recognizes the oneness of all. Conditional love gives to another, since it believes the separation to be real. Unconditional love gives content or its vision. Conditional love comes from form. Unconditional love recognizes that to give is to receive, whereas conditional love does not. Conditional love is spontaneous. Unconditional love is spontaneous and belongs to eternity. Conditional love takes place over time, and there are gaps between the giver and the receiver. Unconditional love recognizes that ideas never leave their source. Conditional love believes that ideas leave their source. Unconditional love is based on oneness and unity. Conditional love is based on duality and must have separation. When you realize that the joy of love is in the giving and not the feedback, you'll be on the road to exchanging time for eternity. When you can look at another person's story and say with a sense of awe and wonderment, what an interesting creation they have made for themselves. You are honoring their path. You are responding without making or judging another wrong or guilty for exercising their free will on their own perfect journey. When you can do this, you will be demonstrating that the end of time is near. You will no longer be mistaking a story and its form for the content and vision that the experience provides. You will be able to look at all with the state of awe and marvel at the creative power of mind. When you realize that ideas never leave their source, you have the freedom to accept or reject another's vision or story for your own. Or you can walk away from their creation without judging them. Without judging them, you can realize that each is the creator of their own story, and you're free to write your own script and don't have to participate in their story. You're free to follow your own perfect path as you allow others the same freedom and right. God smiled at our story, that we could be something other than what we really are. God basically says, what a fertile imagination and what an interesting game of make-believe. God does not choose to participate in our game of separation. Therefore, it's not real. God did not mistake giving as separation from receiving, or that love had to be received by some outside entity, or it was not love. God's love remains unchangeable, unconditional, and eternal. It's not earned, and our denial of its flow has no impact on God or what God created. You, my friends, are perfect, whole, and complete. Thank you for joining me and listening to the words from ACIM and the words that Tom wrote when he made his notes on ACIM. I read every morning from Tom's book because it helps me get closer to God and remember what's important in life. And so now let's take a couple of minutes and relax into some meditative time so we can get this message just a little bit deeper into our cognition. And so it's really a part of our day. All right, Tom, it's all yours.
So today we're going to try and not just uh, think about, we're actually going to experience what unconditional love is and why to give is to receive. The Course says that the theme is God is but love, and therefore so am I. So God is unconditional love, and like begets like, so you must be that too. It also says that into his presence would I enter now. This is the acceptance that love abounds and that you are never separate from the source of love, where that love is not only surrounding you, it's in you, it is you. The idea that today I give as I receive is the realization of that oneness, that what we really want to do and what we value is the giving of love. And the response that we feel by that giving is internally driven. It's because we're fulfilling our destiny. It's being what we truly are. So become aware of your breath. Let's just watch the breath for a few moments and center yourself with where you perceive your essence to be as you become aware and just place your essence, whether it be your heart, the third eye, wherever, just become aware of that. And as the breath comes in, feel that love being absorbed by your essence and see your light, your essence as growing bright as you openly receive and extend that love. And what I'd like you to do is to think of someone, some thing, some area where you felt just acceptance. It could be a pet. It doesn't have to be a person. As a matter of fact, might be better some place where you just felt totally accepted. It could be just a nature setting, maybe a park, a natural setting, a waterfall, a river, some place where you felt at total peace, total acceptance, part of the wonderment that surrounds us. And pick that place and let's go there in our mind, be it a place or just, like I say, it could be a pet, someone that, something that seems to give you unconditional love. It could even be a doll something that never really asked anything of you, but just gave and was there for you. Just bring that into your awareness, the feeling of being accepted as being part of that oneness, place where you belong, where you weren't being judged. You were just being totally accepted, and that other seemed to appreciate you just the way you are. There was no judgment, no desire to fix or change, just a total acceptance, the honoring of you as what you are, total acceptance. Just feel that warmth of being appreciated, to be looked at as something treasured, something that was part of itself. Just feeling that love, total acceptance, no judgment. And as you look at that scene, realize that that giving of that unconditional love is so warm, so comfortable, so accepting that you feel that there's no separation between you and the so-called giver of that total acceptance. Just bathe in that. You just rest in knowing that you are loved, you're appreciated, not for what you did, just for your being. You are the recipient. You are someone's treasure, something's treasure, something that belongs. That's one. Perfect peace, perfect harmony, just a blending of two scenes, two minds, two essences as your lights blend. And there's no separation. There's just a commingling of love, of acceptance. There's no giving or receiving, for it's just bathing in that and knowing that you are a treasure. You are that treasure, part of that one setting. No separation, just love. And as you bathe in that acceptance, realize that your acceptance, your being is what's treasured. The other party, entity, doll, whatever it is, just appreciates you because you're there. Your presence, your existence in being is what they value. They value you, and that being of you gives them joy, gives them purpose, allows them to demonstrate that what they are, being love of you. And as you gives them purpose, allows them just rest in that, what they are, of that love, that's what they value. And now, as we look upon our world, we see that we are part of that oneness. And as you look about you, think of something that you treasure, that you value, that you appreciate, that you love unconditionally, something that is your treasure, and how you feel in knowing that they exist, that they are part. Feel the as your mind you just the way they are. No need to fix, change to impress. What they are your treasure, perfect, whole, and complete. And in that union, you are being loved. You are fulfilling your purpose. Love extends all to all because that is what you are. And as you rest in that giving, feel the unconditional love that surrounds you, that's part of you. God is love, and you are that same love. No separation, just the knowing of total acceptance, of appreciation, of gratitude for you being able to extend your love. No feedback necessary. For in that giving, you are fulfilling your function. You're fulfilling your purpose. In time and space, our function is forgiveness. Our purpose is love. And our destiny is the peace of God. And when you give that love, when you use the vision of Christ, see this world as a place for you to accept, trust, and acknowledge all things, that we are one. There is no separation. We are being unconditional love. And as we give that love, we receive it. For God's love is all around. God is love, and therefore, so am I. And just rest in that knowing, that oneness, that total acceptance, and beam out your acceptance to all. For there is no separation, just the oneness of all, perfect, whole, and complete. And we honor the vision of Christ, and we look upon our world and realize and extend our love, fulfill our trust, forgive all things, and trust in the big picture that all this perfection, all on their journey of reawakening to the truth, are part of you. God is love, and therefore so are you. And as we rest in that feeling of warmth, the giving, the peace of being love, of receiving love, of this non-judgmental acceptance, where we are the treasure. And we give that same treasure as our world. Our ability to extend what we are is what we value. All perfect, whole, and complete. Part of that oneness of all. God is but love, and you are that. And with that feeling of acceptance, of warmth, of feeling unconditional love, of extending unconditional love, know that this journey in time and space is just a journey that's over. It's been completed. And at the end of that journey is this feeling of total acceptance. And you can give that acceptance today in this world of time and space. You can exchange time for eternity, for the journey is over. You are love. You have come here to demonstrate being love in form. You have come here to demonstrate that you are God's treasure. You are the recipient of unconditional love. You are the giver of that. For to give is to receive, no expectation, just being what you truly are. This world, this dream of separation. And I extend the vision of Christ. And today I will not mistake the form, the world, the pet, the doll, the person, the body, the costume for the realization of what it truly is. My treasure, part of the oneness of all. And I extend that love. Today I accept the love of God. I am the love. I accept the love of God. And I extend that vision of Christ. I hold the truth that you, that I, that the setting is part of the oneness of all that is, that allows me to demonstrate and be love and full. Today, look upon your world as your treasure with gratitude and appreciation and accept and extend the unconditional love that you truly are. I accept the love of God and I extend that vision, that truth, that all is perfect, whole, and complete. No separation. Gratitude. I accept and extend the love of God. And as you rest in that knowing, that unconditional love, that acceptance, realize that your treasure is the giving of that love. That is what you are. Energy in, all thoughts of separation out. Energy in, all guilt, shame, gone. And as you reconnect with the game token we call the body, let's resolve Make the intention today of seeing with the vision of Christ, extending that truth that this world, these experiences, this is what we treasure. And when we give, we receive the love of God. Take a deep breath, and why don't you send the lightning bolt back down to the soles of your costume, your feet, and reground yourself in this time space continuum, this dimension, this world of perception where you have come to demonstrate what love would have me do. And let's go about our day, creating a great day and looking upon all things the love of God. God is love, and therefore so am I. Namaste. The God in me recognizes the God in you. You are my treasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. That was wonderful. It's really helpful to take these a little bit deeper. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We start about an hour ago every single morning. This was Workbook Lesson 174. Tomorrow we'll do 175. Thank you all for being here. Blessings to you all. Come tell us what you think. Hi, Linda, maybe?
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Ding, and everybody down. I have already sent invitations if you want to share something. I do have something to share because this meditation is amazing. And I have just a bit of like a new part of the puzzle that I didn't understand the first time that I read lesson 157 and 158. And now I can see why they like joined two lessons in one. And my experience with this, or my perception in these two lessons today, comes from this idea or this action that we used to do in our regular lives to compare ourselves to others. So the lesson 157, it's about into his presence I will enter now. And what we do in meditation and in our thought process is try to really dismiss the level of the form in order for the mind not get attached to what it seems to be. Hold on, I having bad signal. In what it seems to be separation. Separation. So when we let our mind be attached to the level of the form, and as the true self, it's one, we will always try to achieve what others have achieved or has in their lives. So with what you see with your eyes, it's what needs to be surrendered to God. That's why they ask us, or he asks us, he meaning Jesus, ask us to enter into his presence now, because in that way you will see that everybody is different in form. Nobody is more or less, it's just unique. I have to give my potential into this world, and you have to give yours. So it's not about being the same, it's about being one and feel complete in that oneness that you are, that it's apparently different from others, but it's part of the higher source itself. So don't compare yourself. Do mindfully what you have to do in your life during the day. Be present, enjoy your role, because nobody can be you, just you. And that's enough. That's how he is. He is unique and complete. So everything, as everything are aspects of the same source, in his presence I will enter now, because I will share then his vision. And his vision, that it's what it says in lesson 158, is that the experience can't be shared directly. What you have in your life cannot be part of anybody else's life, but you do can share the vision of appreciation of uniqueness. And therefore, when you see a brother, that's how you have another chance to let Christ's vision shine on you, and offer, and that will offer you the peace of God, because then you are not seeing everybody else on or anything like being something that you don't have or you are not. You will see everything as beautiful as they are, even if they are not the same as you, apparently in the level of the form. So each other is another opportunity to free yourself and others, and that's the vision of Christ. Is like appreciation of uniqueness. Nobody has to be anything else. We are not here to be the same in the level of the form. We are here to be the same at a mind level, in order to be able to appreciate each other with our own journeys, with our own paths, with our own perceptions. And it's beautiful because that's really something to be experienced in order to be shared. God is but love, and therefore so am I. And that comparison, or yeah, when you're trying to really achieve things in life because you see something outside that you want to have or you don't have, and you feel less or more, is what causes the separation idea. So as everything is what you have in your mind, choose again, because everything that is outside of you, it's as unique as you, and it's perfect the way it is. So the only thing that we need to do in life is appreciate what we are doing and be mindfully in what we are doing, in order for us to be at peace. And that's my thoughts on today. I mean, the connection between 157 and 158 today is that as the experience can be shared directly, but vision is, we need to appreciate the uniqueness in everything. And that's my thoughts on today. I mean, the connection between
I
157
got
and
a lot of this one
158
too.
today is that
Certainly a helpful
as the
reminder.
experience
And I
can be
think
shared directly,
so many
but
levels you
vision
get from this
is,
one.
we need
And
to
it's
appreciate
impossible to pass our
the
revelations on, even though
uniqueness
we
in
try.
everything.
It's good to know what phrases help induce revelations in others, though. So, if any of this was revelatory to you, I'd love to hear it.
Rosa, I have
I got a
sent
lot of
you
this one
several
too.
invitations to come up.
Certainly a helpful
Let me
reminder.
know
And I
through the
think
chat
so many
if
levels
you
you
have
get from
any
this one.
issues,
And it's
if you
impossible to
wanna
pass our
try to come
revelations
up,
on, even though we try.
because I see your hand raised and I
It's
have been
good to
receiving
know what phrases help induce
wait,
revelations in
waits
others,
from
though.
you to
So, if
to
any of this
share
was
in another room.
revelatory
So
to you, I'd love to hear it.
let us know if you want to. Rosa, I have
I got a
sent
lot of
you
this one
several
too.
invitations to come up.
I'm wondering how this
Let
works
me know
practically
through the
because
chat
once I gave this woman
if you
a
have any
complete,
issues,
so
if
this
you wanna
complete
if you
stranger,
wanna try to come
I
up,
met at a hostel,
because I
needed some
see your
money
hand raised and I have been
because
receiving
for various reasons she ended up in
waits from
Boston
you
without
to
any of her
share in
savings,
another room.
and I
So
gave her $600
let
out
us
of just
know if
pure
you wanna.
generosity, and it led to just so many complications. So I found that she wasn't able to manage the money. She couldn't find a place of her own, and she kind of um, snowballed into a number of other complications that required more and more money. And in the end, I just cut her off. with the result that she started abusing me verbally. And I'm curious as to any experiences you've had where you've given something to the universe in an act of generosity, and yet it's been reflected back in something that's quite destructive.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I first have a question. How did you manage to know what she did with the money?
So she spent it on a dinner with me and a few other people, and she dissipated the rest of it on rent. So
But this is a person that you already knew. I mean, it's not, well, that's interesting. Like,
it was a completely random person that I met, and I felt generous that day. So I gave her money.
well, I think that in my perspective, and I offer you an apologies in advance because I don't know how you will take this, but when you give something, you just give it freely. You don't need to know what they do with the money. You detach from it. I have done some things like that, but not even facing the people. I just randomly, for example, if I feel like, oh my God, I feel inspired to do something like out of the blue, or I feel inspired to do some kind of like good good thing. I once, for example, just took a $500 Mexican pesos bill, and I put it in a car in a parking lot that the car, because the car had only, like, I don't know, something that I liked, like a symbol or something that I like, and I put the bill. So the random kindness has to be random, has to be without attachments, because once you get attached to the result, then you might as well not like the result of it. So my thoughts on your experience, because I never had experiences like that. I mean, giving a huge amount of money, because, well, what I did in the parking lot is not that big. Um, uh, it's all about just giving freely without any attachment. So I don't know how you managed to know what she ended up doing with the money, but I guess that that is probably the reason why you received that, because maybe you were trying to find a miracle in something that you did, but maybe you don't need to know now what that action end up triggering in the entire scene of her life. Maybe you seem to perceive a anger in her because you didn't want to help her more, but maybe that was the thing that she needed, in fact, to just drive her life in another direction, probably, and you don't have to know. So don't get caught in the result of your actions. If you are doing something out of love, detach from it. The love will take care of it. You don't need to know. We have to always trust. There's so many times where we always get attached of knowing, because we want to see peace, we want to see, and we want to experience the good in what we do. And that is because we are always constantly judging our actions in the way that we want to feel good with ourselves. So um, you don't need to know what things are for. You felt the deep drive to do that for that person and get attached to see what the outcome was. Probably that's how she ended up asking for more. So don't worry. Don't worry about it. Do your part. Do you did your part? She did her part. Bless her and detach from it. Maybe she needed that interaction with you in that very same way, and that needed to be like that. And for you, what is the lesson there in terms of, yeah, the attachment of good deeds, or the resorts of good deeds?
Well, can I just say something? That's a good example of, the uh, what Lee was talking about, with the giving of the $100,000. When you gave her the $600, were you giving her and seeing her as a needy person, or were you giving her hope, or were you giving, so like if you saw that person and you were giving with the idea that they were needy, that there was something wrong with them, that they needed this thing in order for them to be, uh, I use that, in order for them to be happy, or to somehow fulfill some lack. You've mistaken the body for what they really are, which is on their own perfect journey. But what you've done is you've given with the idea that they are needy. If to give is to receive, if we give the idea of neediness, what you're going to get back from that person is the fulfillment that they are needy. Then you're going to actually perhaps be developing a situation where those people are going to, you're actually a co creator in a codependency situation. Uh, if you gave with the idea that there's hope, here's $600 so that you can go on your journey and create abundance in your life, uh, then you've given, whether or not that person accepts the idea that this is abundance and that they can manifest abundance. That's their own perfect journey. We tend to give with the idea of some expectation that they're supposed to spend that money in a certain way. And what Adriana was saying is you give because you want to give. And if you're giving with the idea that they're needy, if you're giving with the idea that they're supposed to do something, uh, then there's somewhat strings attached. And now you're going to have to rely on that person feedback so that you can determine whether or not that was the right thing to do. And when you uh, give with strings attached, you're really saying is, I'm giving you $600. I expect you to do A, B with this. If you don't, then you will cause me to be unhappy. You will cause me to be wrathful, or whatever it might be. And what you've done when you give neediness to somebody is you've disempowered yourself, because now you're saying that their uh, future actions or how they receive it is going to either make you happy or make you sad. And if we give with no attachment to what they do with it, we do not lose our power. If you just give your abundance or your hope or your vision, uh, what they do with it is immaterial. Uh, it will not rob you of your inner peace whenever you find out that they used it to shoot some heroin up their arm or whatever it might be, because they're on their own perfect pave without the attachment, without that expectation. Because whenever you give with an expectation, you disempower yourself. So I just say, what were you giving? Were you giving, obviously, the form was $600. Were you giving them hope? Were you giving them uh, the idea that they are needy? Uh, that's the uh, context. And that's what you're really giving. When we understand that the form doesn't matter, it's that mindset. that you're giving somebody that's of value. Because the Course says uh, thoughts can be shared. There's no sacrifice in giving form, but mind, that's something that never leaves its source and can be accepted by another, and you can help that person lift themselves up to a higher vision because right now they're looking maybe through their uh, belief that they're the costume. So it's just a question, like Fiona said about being unattached. But why are you giving it? You're giving because you're giving out of abundance. You're giving because you uh, are giving hope. Uh, you're giving because it makes you demonstrate what you feel it was. And again, the question always is not what we're doing, but why are we doing it? Did we ask for our guidance, or did we just play the homeless man syndrome in our minds and not ask for guidance to see what uh, the Holy Spirit would tell us to do in that situation? I hope that helps. Thank you.
That's really helpful to ask what the Holy Spirit would do in that situation and follow the guidance, because I didn't even approach it that way. So what had happened was I met a career coach who said, do look around your environment and just do two things that would help someone every day. So I started that habit, and I initially did small things like opening doors or helping someone um, with dishes. So just very simple favors. But yeah, like at the hostel, I just came across someone who needed help. So she claims to um, have been begging people for money, and managed to get enough money to pay for the hostel. And if she didn't have any money then onwards, she would end up homeless. And so she yeah, wanted me to pay her rent, um, because she wanted a place to stay. And I'm like, okay, let's just try this. I did not seek guidance at all. I was just very mechanical. I was curious. It was like an experiment. My instincts told me that this was someone who can't be trusted. I live quite a sheltered, privileged life, so to come across someone in desperate circumstances was new to me. And so I'm like, okay, his some career coach told me to do so, and I didn't have um, deep convictions about the validity of that exercise. So I didn't believe in anything I was doing, and I merely did it because I was told to do so. And the energy I gave was that of curiosity, judgment, a bit of condescending energy as well. And I've learned my lesson. I think if the same situation arises again, I would seek guidance from the Holy Spirit and connect with my intuition and judgment. And if they don't align, then I just don't do it.
That lesson, see, for $600, that's probably a valuable lesson if you've absorbed that. That actually you should never uh, blindly follow someone else's uh, telling you what you should do. Um, a guru or whatever is no guru. That person is telling you something. You have to go to your higher self and check with your own internal guidance and follow that voice. And what we often do is we want to not take responsibility for our own decisions. and therefore say, well, this person told me to do this. Therefore, if it doesn't turn out, I really can blame them because it's not my fault, not my responsibility. So everything unfolds perfectly. And what we need to realize is that situation is that the course says we're all teachers, we're all students. Those experiences are designed to help us learn and reawaken to some truth. So for you, it might be the lesson that you need to check with your higher self. Be more, just don't blindly follow something because someone told you to jump off the cliff. In regard to uh, that person is on their own perfect path. And in this case, they receive $600. They, at least in your mind, wasn't a very good steward of that $600. They didn't spend it appropriately, but they're on their own perfect path. And what they ultimately might use that experience for, in this case, uh, it might be the learning lesson was that they need to take responsibility for their own situation. Okay. And everybody is on their own perfect path, and they might need 1,000 successful failures before they realize that uh, they are not dependent, that they have some responsibility, that they're co-creator of their world. So whatever happened with that lady, uh, and in this case, she got abusive and stuff. That was a lesson she was trying to learn, and she probably maybe found out with some hindsight that by being abusive didn't get her what she wanted, which was more money. Okay. And so she maybe learned that lesson, and maybe she'll, who knows, be more grateful or whatever, or take responsibility. But we don't have to judge where people are. Just know that everything's perfectly unfolding. And on the big picture, everybody did what they were supposed to. Everybody played their role. And because of that experience for both parties, they've moved down the ladder or up the mountain to reawakening. So everybody played their part. We don't have to judge or anything and just say, well, interesting experience. Whenever you have a negative experience or get a result, it's always, because it's always about you, to ask yourself, when I have an experience, what would I have to believe about myself to have attracted or needed that experience in my life? What was the learning lesson that it was designed to teach me? And you know that's what it's all about. It's all about getting the feedback so that you can make mid-course corrections, so that you can proceed on your merry way and enjoy the journey of reawakening to the truth that you are God's beloved child, and that nothing outside of myself can rob me of my own inner peace unless I choose to allow it. In this case, you allowed perhaps that woman in her, what we might consider, or at least from an egoic level, inappropriate response to rob you of your own inner peace, so that you are felt embittered, uh, rather than being detached. So you got something still to brush up on. Thank you.
I wanna jump in, but because my friend Rosa has been trying to come up the stage and she finally made it. So hi Rosa, how
Hey guys, I used to struggle with money issues uh, in a lot of ways. It was never enough until I changed my thought that no matter what my bank account looks like, I am in total peace with it. And I also understand that I am being directed by God. So I give out of abundance. No matter what I give, financially to anybody, it's never taking away from me. I don't lose anything by lending or giving because I don't believe in lending. So anything that even though they say, oh, this is a loan, I always give with the fact that it's not a loan and it may not come back to me that way. And it usually doesn't come back from the people that I give financial help to, but it comes back to me in other ways. Um, Very long ago, I, under the auspices of loaning this person money to save their house, I never received that money back from her, but I did receive thousands of dollars from other places during that year that I loaned her the money. So when I looked back at it, the universe paid me back. The universe gave me more than I gave her in that instance and keeps giving. My father used to always say, never loan that which you cannot afford to lose. And they tell you that even in when we make financial moves in whatever stocks, bonds, crypto, it doesn't matter. I do that from abundance. Even if it's only $10 that I'm doing. I used to wake up every first of the month and buy crypto and stocks that first day of the month, because that's when I'm retired, so my money only comes twice a month. And so do my giving. They say the first 10% of everything you receive should be given to the master. Well, I'm the master. I'm the God. So I pay myself first in every aspect. Before I give anything, I don't leave money in the bank for to save. I do mine through gold and silver and crypto. Um, and I do that religiously. Have been doing it for the last at least 6 years. That's how I move. And so when people ask me, Rosa, can you send me $20? Can you give me $50? Or can you help me out? And most of the time it's family members, youngsters, people who are struggling with the paycheck. And I never expect them to pay it back. I never, ever, ever, ever expect them. And I'm surprised when they do. I have a sister who I help throughout the year off and on. And whenever she gets her income tax, she always shoots me like $300-400. And I am also so surprised when she does that. But she does that every year. She said, Rosa, you always help me out whenever I need it. So this is for you. And it makes me feel so good that she remembers, to just shoot me something because she can. I never, ever, ever worry about it. And I used to worry, when you say, oh, somebody says, loan me this, and then they go out and buy a brand new purse instead of paying a bill that you think that that's what they got it for. I stopped worrying about it. Once I give you the money, what you do with it is your business. I don't ask you. I don't want you to report to me. I don't want you to say anything to me. If you don't want to, you don't have to justify what you asked me for. Once it leaves my hands, it's up to you to do whatever you want to do with it. For one thing, I have the feeling and I know that that dollar amount that sent you, only a third of that is spendable anyway. Every dollar is only worth 30 cents in spending money. So even though in response to the sister who gave $600, you really only gave her $300 worth of spending power, because that's all that money's worth. That dollar bill doesn't mean a daggone thing, so why worry about it? Do the best you can and leave the rest to God. He'll take care of it. That's when I really have faith. That's when faith steps in. I am always giving from my abundance, not from my lack of. So whether it comes back to me in that form or not is not that important. And I had to get out of that whole feeling of giving from a depleted amount or something that you can use. There's nothing that I can't share. Food, time, money. Those things are always in abundance. And that's the way I feel about that whole. We put, and especially in America, we put too much on capitalism, that dollar bill, that importance of. And I think that once we get into alignment, that we live in abundance, those kinds of things kind of drop away. They kind of, those emotional ties behind that dollar bill, you know, because actually it's only monopoly money. It's a made up currency that the 10 families came up with many years when they were on Jekyll Island. That whole concept of the fiat currency came up. George Washington, that whole dollar bill, that debt note, because it's not even a dollar. It says that it's a debt note. Whether it's $100 bill or $1,000 bills, it's really just worth 30% of whatever that bill is. So we have to really, you know, it stems from what we were taught, the importance of cash. And so many people believe that importance. And we hold tight all kinds of emotional distress behind that thing we call a dollar bill. You know, fear of losing it and being poor. Please, there is nothing that is in lack and limitations on this planet. We have just been taught to fear. And so, with the course being as it is the release of all fear on every level. And it just happens eventually as we keep going through this whole process. So, stick around. Your whole being of what humans have said is importance will change. We are only here for God, and God don't have dollar bills. God has gold and silver. God has, we actually put a dollar amount on gems, diamonds and sapphires and all that. They're just crystals, you know, and they do have energy. But we humans have imagined it to be worth a whole lot of money. I was looking up my little cousin was going through my little bank where I save all my gold and silver and stuff. She was like, "You got so much money here." I said, "Yeah, it's kind of happened over time, and that's all right, you know." But it's just that we humans give value to these things that God just said for us to use, and we use them. Silver and gold is used in almost every technology form that we use. So investing in those kinds of things will constantly increase your value of your portfolios. So we have to learn to think uh, in abundance in every way, because we are totally uh, in sync with God's reality in this world. It's just that we tend to follow what our minds have imagined to be valuable. So this is all a course and a lesson in life. And so many times we look at it just in a spiritual form, and all of it is tied in to be one thing. Love is love, whether you're talking about love and finances, love and people, love and whatever. We have to rest in the fact that we are totally abundant in every form and fashion, and look for it and see it and not fear it. So I am. Rosa J doing it God's way each and every day. That's my take on it. You can't miss what and the saying is you can't miss what you cannot measure. And even though we have given an amount to the financial life that we live here, but we really can't put it on a scale. Unless you have gold powder or silver powder or something like that. You can't weigh it. Those dollar bills don't weigh diddly squat, and they're only worth 30 cents of spending power. So if you got $100,000 in the bank, you really don't have $100,000 in the bank. It's not going to buy you but 30% of what that $100 would have bought you 40 or 50 years ago. So that's all inflated. Stop worrying. You're all right.
Thank you, Rosa. Go ahead, Bob.
Rosa, I sent you actually to everybody. They can all see. Just sent you a request for $100,000. If you have it, and since you don't worry about getting paid back, if you could spare it, I could use it. Just wanted to let you know, just in case. And of course, I'm playing with you. Um,
Thank you, Rosa.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think when you say that you come from an abundant thinking of yourself, it is that we are essentially worth uncountable money, because money itself is useless anyway in the area that we're talking about. What does it mean to have a lot of money if it's in the bank and you can't do anything with it? Except, I mean, Putin owns a yacht that's worth, what is it, 750 billion, $1 million or something, but he can't get in the boat. He doesn't even have his name on it. He made sure that they didn't put his name there because he knew what might happen if his name was known. But they found out anyway, because all things get found out sooner or later. I think your attitude is wonderful. It's delicious, and it's bound to keep you in a happy place, because you recognize that you have all the abundance that you could possibly spend if you had 10 lifetimes, because that's where the real abundance is, and it's all about love. We're love. God is love, therefore so am I. All of these things keep coming back to that. Well, how much is it worth? Well, for us screwy human beings who have to put a worth on it, it's way beyond infinity. So why are we worrying? How are we going to change our attitude to realize how abundant we truly are in the areas that are truly important? Love is the most important thing. Love is what God is. God is love. It always comes back to that. It doesn't matter how many places we go as a potential prodigal child, we always come back and recognize that it's all there. Everything we ever could want is there. What we do with it, that's the next chapter in our lives. So thank you for the things that I was able to hear. I've been on a call for about 45 minutes. I just came off enough a little while ago just to hear you speak, and I'm very grateful that I did. Thanks.
You know,
Well, thank God for the replay.
when, can I say just one thing? I think I know, and I don't think anything. I know this, that if everything we do, give, say, live is in love, it's going to all be all right. If I give someone whatever out of love, not greed, It might be the intention to give this money, maybe to make more money, but that's all right as long as I give it in a happy mood. I'm not giving it in fear. Oh, if I give them this is in love. It's gonna all be all right. You have to give in love, not give in. Oh, I say asking me for this money again. God, can't they take care of themselves? Blah 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 blah. We have to remember to share whatever we're sharing in love, not in angst and anxiety, not in fussing or some people will and never mention it again. You know what I'm saying? Never throw it up in their face. Well, I loaned you such and such. And there are a lot of people like that. That will save you, but you got to hear the lecture first. They'll come to your rescue, but they got to say their piece. I'd be like, really, you can keep it. I think God will take care of me. You know, I have to be weary of people who give in angst and anxiety because it's not given in love. I remember telling a friend years ago, they used to come and pick me up because I don't drive. And I tell you, and take me where I needed to go. But before the evening was over, they'd be in such angst and anxiety that they made the whole experience terrible. So I just told them one day, don't offer to take me anywhere. Because by the time I finish, I don't feel good in asking you. That you have made my day just miserable. Even though I got the things that I needed done, it was not a pleasant experience. So if you can't give me a ride in love, don't offer. Don't give in angst and anxiety. You're not passing anything over except for the stress of worry. If you're going to give, then give. Don't lecture. If you're going to help, then help. Don't fuss with me. Just, otherwise, just keep it because it's not going to bless anybody with that anxiety attached to it. Just say, I bless you and God keeps you and give it. Or don't.
Rosa, you have a way of saying things, you know, it's like you don't mince words. If you've got 1 arrow left in that bow of yours, it's going to hit the bullseye every time. You don't have to shoot 12 arrows hoping one of them's going to hit the bullseye. It's just going to hit the bullseye. And you have a way of saying it. But the way that the Course says it is very simple. There's only two emotions. It's love or fear. And all that anxiety and all that angst, guess where it all comes from? It all comes from selfishness. It comes from the fear that they're not going to get the money back, or they're not going to pay for the gas that they use to take you somewhere. And they sure as heck didn't get much benefit from being with you if the way it ended up, they're full of angst. I can't even look at your face without smiling. And that is what is much more important. The light and the love that you have exudes your whole expression. It's about your whole being. It's all there. If someone doesn't want that and they end up in angst, and they may have thought they wanted it, but they end up in angst, which is just fear. Fear has a lot of different words that mean the same thing. If they're full of angst and they're worried about whatever it is that they've done, they're worried for you, which means they're worried for themselves, of course. The Course teaches very simple lessons in many different ways. And Rosa, you got your own way of teaching the people around you so that they behave in a way that is a blessing for you. And if they're not, you don't seem to have a whole lot of time for them, and that's okay. Because then you can put your time in with someone else and bless them. If I were in that situation, I would consider it a blessing all the time that I was driving you.
That's
Thank
just the
you
way it
so
should
much.
be. You're welcome.
You know,
That's my
I do have a tendency to be real, and a lot of times people take that realness as anger. Or, um, I think that anything that you need to say or I need to say should be said in simple terms where people can understand them without having to look up a word. Plain English is always the best. Vocabulary can be increased in a lot of, like you could say, birds of a feather stick together, or you can say birds of similar plumage congregate in gregarious fashions. Which one would someone understand easily? You can be the judge of that, but it says the same thing. That's the power of what we call the English language. You know, for me, the simpler it's said, the better I understand it. And I think that there are more people like me in the world than the other way, you know? So I do tend to say things very simple. And a lot of times people do take it and they have comments. You're so real. You're so unfiltered. You're so, I tell them, yeah, I am. All of that and some more. Whatever you think I am, I'm all right with it. I don't have to answer to it, but you can claim me any kind of way you want. That's on you. I just do what I do. So that's it. And I'm glad that some people can take it. And I realize that those people, one of the things that I always say when I used to do my lives all the time, I always say, the right people will hear this. The right people that need to be healed from this will be a part of this. All those other people will drop away because it's either not their time, I'm not their teacher, and I let God do all that. I don't care who they are. You might not like what I say. Well, hey, cut me off. The power of technology is I don't have to stick around if I don't want to. I was on a chat in a club room the other day and they were talking about crazy stuff. Michelle Obama is really a transvestite. I'm like, really? Really? Okay. And if she is, what difference does it make? Do you love her? Are you sleeping with her? Whatever you think is all right. It may not be the real truth, the truth, but it might be a fact that you think it. And that's all right for you to think crazy if that's what you want to do. I can only be my own salvation. Everybody else is their own salvation. And we take and leave what we can at the table. Take what we need and leave the rest and not worry about it. This experience with Course in Miracles has changed my whole look on life. And I am so grateful. And I tell people, come on along. It might take years and years for you to really get this, but it's really so simple. Like you said, it's only about love and fear. And there are a lot of synonyms that go under love and fear. Jealousy. And the people don't even think about it. Jealousy, envy, all of those things, nothing but fear. I'm not enough. I'm this. I'm not. Really? I'm God. I'm more than enough. I'm only here for God. All the rest of you people can drop off the planet of Earth as long as I'm here with God. I'm good. You know, life just is so simple to me.
Now, Rosa, I'm just going to tell you that's the only place possibly that you diverge because God's not going to let anybody drop off the earth. He's already planned. He's planned in such a way that it's not that he's set our destiny, I don't believe. What he has done is simply know that ultimately we are going to agree with him once we have been able to understand that God and we are simply one. So we already know, and he already knows. We may not know what's happening in the next 2 moments of time, but he does. So, and that's all an illusion anyway, because it's all about who we are period. And it's who we are this second, and then the next second, and then the next second. So I would say that I probably have a continence for the most part similar to yours, but I don't worry too much about where the others are going. I also feel that God is going to, and that's all an illusion anyway, because it's all about who we are, period. And it's who we are this second, and then the next second, and then the next second. So Harville, I probably have a continence for the most part similar to yours. Hey, Harville. I don't worry too much about where the others are going. I also feel that God is going to.
Well, I just want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rosa, for coming in, and Linda for that wonderful conversation we had earlier. It's really nice to have you here. I really appreciate your participations. And everybody down below, thank you very much for joining us every day. Today I will have to just say goodbye for now, but Lee will wrap it up in a moment, I guess. Bob is having a
Consider it
phone call.
wrapped. You did an amazing job.
So I will leave you if you want to keep sharing, and see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
And everybody down below.
Everyone have a great day. Peace and love.